from Lindsay. Just let me know that you can see me and hear me okay. Okay, Lindsay, I'm hoping you can see me, and we'll get going. If you have got any questions at any time, please just type them into the chat box and I'll go through them as we go on. The plan is to, it'll last about 30 minutes, and obviously if there are questions, that might just delay us a little bit, but please feel free to hang around at the end once everybody's gone, and we can talk a bit more then. So welcome. This is all about what is Careerpilot, how you might use it next year. Importantly, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how Careerpilot meets the Gatsby benchmarks and the Careers Statutory Guidance, both of which have been in the headlines this year, and how you might use Careerpilot in your institutions in the following year. So some of you are familiar with the website. It's always changing, and we try and make sure that it's up to date and it's impartial. So when you go on, you might find that it's changed a little bit since the last time, but ultimately we're a free website for children between 13 and 19-year-olds. We've expanded our area. So we used to be mainly southwest. We've now moved further east. And the reason that we've moved further east is because of the NCOP project. This is a particular government project that's allowed certain places within the UK to spend more money on trying to get more students to consider higher education. So within our area, in the Bath area, it's a WIN project. You might have heard of Study Higher in the Oxford, Reading area. There's Next Step Southwest in the Cornwall area, and there are others. But of the local area, 6 of those NCOPs are using Careerpilot as part of their project, hence why we've been able to develop and hence why we've been able to move a bit further forward. So you'll find that we survey the students that use our site, we also survey the staff, and generally we find that the feedback's really, really positive. So what we're all about is trying to make sure that students know all about the different options that are available to them. And even though we're funded by 20 universities across the south of England, we're not just promoting higher education in terms of university, we're also trying to promote apprenticeships, training and work. We're also trying to cater for those students who might not be able to get a level 4+ qualification. So it's really just trying to find something on there that will help them make their career choices and you to help them. And the reason it's free, again, is because it's funded by the 20 universities. The funding is being secured to at least 2020. We don't envisage that the funding will stop. We're really well regarded by the universities, and we have regular meetings and a steering group to make sure that the universities are happy with how we're progressing. And again, with the feedback, we're really sort of moving places. Just to mention as well that this year we were awarded the CDI Award for the best website. So again, these accolades are really helping us to try and progress even further. So as part of this year's work, we've been trying to make sure that what we have on Careerpilot meets the new statutory guidance that was released in January. And along with that, the Gatsby benchmarks that are sort of really the fundamental building blocks for the career statutory guidance. So we've been through the website and tried to map what we offer to those 2 different documents. And these are freely available on the website. So if you did want to show senior managers in a school why you would wish to use Careerpilot, it's a really good reinforcement. So you can show them that we mapped both of those things, and we'll go through those a little bit as well, just so you can back that up with a little bit of knowledge. So these are the 8 Gatsby benchmarks. I'm sure that in your careers work, you're familiar with them, and they're really good. We think that that's helped to bring a little bit of guidance to a sort of patchy careers world. So Careerpilot can help in the terms of the sense that there's 4 different areas to Careerpilot. Laura, if you've used us in the past, you may only be familiar with the student area because that was the first one to be launched. Since then, we've launched the parent zone. So if you have a parents' evening, for instance, you can direct them to the parent area of Careerpilot and get their answers and the questions answered. We have an advisor zone, which allows staff in schools to find resources for their particular students. And that's where you can find links to presentations to show to parents or staff. There are student presentations, There are articles that you might want to put in a newsletter to try and promote Careerpilot, all trying to show that your school body or college body are familiar with the work that you're doing. The new reporting zone was launched in September of this year, well, so 2017, yeah. And that's really a new development for us, and I'll explain more about that in a short while. So the benchmark 1, a stable careers programme, it's all about Careerpilot being used across the school and trying to embed it in the early years and carrying that on through to the sixth form if you have one. So obviously in years 7 to 9, they might just be exploring the careers that they might want to do in the future. We have a skills map, so they can start to record the skills that they're achieving through their different experiences. It might help them when choosing their GCSEs, either in year 8 or year 9. Into Key Stage 4, then, it's really building on those building blocks from Key Stage 3 and trying to get them to think about more about their post-16 options. Is the sixth form in school the best choice for them? Is a college a better choice? Is a vocational pathway better? Would an apprenticeship suit? And so it's those kind of things that we're trying to get the young people to look at for themselves. We're empowering them to try and use a website to make those choices. Again, they can redo the skills map or improve on their skills map, particularly if they've completed a work experience placement in year 10. They can record that and start to show the employer or the college that they have got some skills that would be useful for the next steps. Into the sixth form then, really it's about applying to universities or apprenticeships or work. And again, we try and advise students and help them along the way. So again, the skills map will help them if they're applying for jobs or university courses. We can help with personal statement writing. There are links to personal statement writing websites. And again, it's more about exploring what the options are for them. So there's a whole wealth of things there, and we do link to external websites, but we're constantly striving to make sure those links are accurate and the websites that we link to are good websites. And so it's just really trying to make it easier for students to find the information that's right for them. Not only students as well, staff who are working with these young people, and obviously parents as well. So again, you may be familiar with this already, but sorry if I'm going over this, but just to remind you that the student area has 2 different parts. The information part, where students just go in and can look at what they might be interested in, and the career tools is where they can start to personalise the choices that they're interested in. So they can bookmark pages, they can bookmark jobs that they're interested in, they might want to bookmark some providers in a local area, the colleges, for instance, that they're interested in, and that's where they can complete those skills map that I referred to before. So the career tools require the student to register, but once they've done that, they can save their choices and they can download the report themselves. Not only that, but if a school has access to the reporting zone, which is new, staff at the back end can have access to this data as well. So this is really powerful for a personal advisor or a mentor or a tutor in school, because they can start to build a picture of the young person in front of them. And they could do this as homework, or they could do this in a session before meeting with the careers advisor. And the careers advisor could then have this information at their fingertips, possibly saving 5 to 10 minutes in an interview, because they could look at this and really find out a little bit more about the student beforehand. So the highlights, again, these are the places that students often look at and schools often use. So there are job sectors, 23 different job sectors kept up to date, and we try and make sure the links on there are good. And that might help with work experience, for instance, trying to get students to think about what job sectors they might be suited to. Providers in the south of England, so the colleges and training providers and universities, students can find out more about what's available to them in the local area. And this is particularly good for sixth formers who are perhaps less inclined to move away, the ones that might be more suited to a vocational pathway. Again, that's really good for them to find out local courses at local providers. The qualification planner is a tool where students can map out their qualification route. So you can map out if you're wanting to do A-levels and then a degree, for instance, or alternatively, you can look at the other pathways and look to see what you might be better suited to. So there's information on there like foundation degrees, HNCs, HNDs, and these are sometimes qualifications that students are less familiar with. So again, helping staff perhaps as well who are working with these young people. So that's a qualification planner. Students can go in for their age, and they can look to see information for their particular age group by clicking on those coloured circles. And again, they can go in at a particular interest. So if they are interested in finding out more about A-levels or apprenticeships, they simply click on the box labelled with that information. So as I said, the job sector is probably our most used area of the website because year 7s onwards like to look at different jobs. And there are 23 there currently. This might have a little bit of an overhaul in the summer, but primarily the information is there, and it's taken, a lot of it is taken from the National Career Service website. So we're confident that the information is good. The labour market information, which is important for Gatsby as well, Gatsby Benchmark 2, this is where students can find out if the job that they're interested in is a growth job, or if it's a job that's likely to decline, if it's a job that's prominent in their area, for instance, in the Southampton area or the coastal areas, that might be different to Oxford or Bath or Bristol. So it's trying to find out local information as well. So that's all within job sectors, and students again can select the ones that they're interested in, and they can say whether they're just exploring it at that point or whether they're definitely interested. And again, if you're an advisor at the back end and you have access to the data via the reporting zone, you can build up a picture for the interested job sectors in your community, in your school. So that's the job sectors. And again, we're always updating this and making sure it's up to date. This is an example of the business administration job sector, information about the particular job sector. And then the careerometer is something that's just a nice little tool that students can put up to 3 different jobs in and compare salaries, working hours, and so on. And again, LMI, whether it's a growth or a declining job. And the job profiles is where they go in and find out all the specific information about jobs, perhaps that they've never heard of. So this is a nice little group exercise that you can undertake in tutor time or as a one-to-one. And for instance, if this person was interested in a businessy type job, this is where you could show them actually, they've possibly heard of a few of them, but there's just this vast variety of business related jobs. So they could look at any number, and again, all of this is saved within their career tools. So if they did this the following year, they could go back and say, oh, I remember looking at an accounting technician. Right, okay, well, I'm still interested in that, so I'll see what I have to do in order to do that job. And all of that information is there. And again, this is a bit that's taken from the National Career Service, so we're confident that it's up to date and accurate. So this is what the students' career tools report page would start to look like. So they would click on job sectors and it shows them what they've clicked on before. If it's green, that means that's the one that they're really interested in. Whether it's orange is just where they've been exploring that particular one. So as an advisor, you would get this information as well. So this particular student is definitely interested in construction, has looked at the other ones in orange, and then you can see that this person has also looked at 2 job profiles, but had they looked at 10, 15, however many, they would all be shown there on their screen. So I referred to the reporting zone, and this is the bit that ties in with Gatsby Benchmark 3, and this is where it might be of particular use to a careers advisor or tutor in school. So for instance, if you have access to this data, and I'll talk to you about how you do that, you can go onto the reporting zone via the Careerpilot website. Again, it's all free, you don't need to pay anything. You can look at reports by a particular group, be it a tutor group, a year group, a special needs group, a pupil premium group, whatever it might be. So you can look at reports by a group, and you can also look at an individual's report. And this is what it looks like on screen. So for instance, this person has looked at year 11 and they've looked at the job sector choices that students have made. Again, a similar coding system. So you start to get a feel for what those year 11 students are interested in. Now, this is really quite useful if you're organising a careers event, a talk, a fair, a business to come in and talk about a particular area of work, because you can start to personalise the visits that are made if you have that luxury of having businesses coming to school. But this is where you can really start to formulate perhaps a plan in order to try and meet those Gatsby benchmarks. So again, you could do the same with their provider choices. So this is where they might have gone onto the provider map and looked at particular colleges or universities. And again, you could round up a number of students who are particularly interested in Bath Spa University, for instance, or Southampton, or whatever it might be. And particularly if you're working with year 11 and 12 students, it might be what informs your university visit if you do that in your school. But it's all information that you can use. If you wanted to see an individual's career tools report, again, that's available, and you can download this data into an Excel spreadsheet, manipulate it, and do what you need to do. So again, this is what it would look like if you downloaded the job sector information. And as I said, you can use that to personalise your visits. And you might want to think, oh, well, nobody really wants to do low carbon jobs or green jobs, probably because they don't know much about it, or possibly because they probably find it a bit boring. So that's when you could maybe get somebody in to try and promote these jobs that will, the growth jobs of the future that perhaps students are less familiar with. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Again, this is just another example of some data that you could use. Again, if you have access to the reporting zone, within the career tools, the students have the opportunity to fill in a next steps quiz, which really just tries to draw from them whether they are interested in going on to higher education, if there are any barriers to going on to higher education. And this was put there because this is a WIN requirement or an NCOP requirement, because they're measured on the number of students that do change their minds, if you like. And it's not just university, again, it could be a level 4 apprenticeship or higher. So this is just an example of a survey that we looked at and we did with a number of students in our area. So you can see the responses that were made, and quite quickly you can start to see, well, if it's money that's putting people off. So for instance, let's have a look. Somebody said, I don't think I can afford it. So if you find that that's quite a big issue within your school or college, you could start maybe putting plans in place to try and counteract that view. So talking about student finance and so on and so forth. They might not get the grades. That's a different conversation altogether. How do you try and convince them, or try and, to make them think that they'd be more confident that they might get the grades? And so there's a whole raft of data that tutors and careers advisors could use to help formulate their discussions or interactions with these students. So that's just an example of some of the data you can get from the Next Steps quiz. So going back to the Gatsby benchmarks, number 4 is linking the curriculum to careers. And obviously we can start to put in there about which subjects are most likely to link to which job sectors. And that is a development that we're doing over the summer. We're going to give students a chance to put in their favourite subjects or their A-level subjects, and then they would be sort of fast forwarded, if you like, to the job sectors that might be the most suitable to them. So it just helps them a little bit with finding that information. The STEM job sector is a new sort of thing, just because STEM is very much sort of in the news and in the kind of like being pushed. So there's a whole job sector related to jobs in STEM. And again, there are related videos. So there's lots and lots of there about women in science, or trying to promote females in engineering, that kind of thing. So again, if you've got that kind of push going on within your school, it might be something that you could use to help you. So this is a screenshot of the HE skills map. So this is where students fill in a questionnaire. And when they filled it in, they get some skills that are linked to their answers. And then you can start to build up a body of evidence for when they apply for a job or a university course. And again, it links in with Gatsby 5 and 6, because they can use this now to, when they've had an encounter with an employer or an employee, they can record this on the skills map. If they've completed a work experience placement, they can record that on their skills map, and so really start to show evidence of these experiences. And if you remember, 7 is a magic number, and they're supposed to have 1 encounter per year. So 7 encounters with employers or employees, could be a university as well, I suppose. So this is where they could start to record some of that information. So again, be used as a recording tool within your school. And it's very simple. They would simply add an example that they've done, whatever it might be, and then they could start to tick the skills that they think they've achieved by having done that. So there's all sorts of things that they could do there. And the skills bank is really just a visual guide to their best skills, or the skills that they've evidenced. And perhaps the lower ones, for instance, leadership in this example, you might want a discussion about, well, maybe you could lead a team, or you could be in the panto or the play or whatever it might be, to try and get them to build on some of the skills that haven't ranked as high as the top ones. So again, this is the HE skills map, or the skills map for pre-16 is where young people can record what they've done, whether it be an employer encounter or a university visit, etc. So number 7, Gatsby, is again, they want to students have more encounters with further or higher education. And again, Careerpilot can help with this because they can record that within their skills map, or they could look on Careerpilot for information about local universities and get them to do a bit of research, perhaps before they go on a visit or before a university visits you. So all of that information is found on the providers' pages, and again, the students can select these and record that as an interest. So for you, for personal guidance, sort of related things, Gatsby benchmark number 8 is where you have the ability, or might have the ability, if you have access to the reporting zone, to access student reports. You can see there that you are able to put in some comments. So if you have had a one-to-one conversation with a young person, you can record that within the career tool report, and you can add links to other websites that you might have found within your research. And again, it's documented and saved and can be shared at a later date. So again, just one place where you can record all of this information about the people that you're working with. Really important thing just to say here, and perhaps you may have heard this before, but if you are going to have access to the reporting zone in the future and you look at the student data, you need to save your actual email, your work email, for that purpose. So if you try and register as a student and use it as a student, you then might run into a problem in the future when you might want to use the reporting zone. So what we advise advisors and teachers is that if you can make up a dummy account to try out the student area, and then that won't interfere in the future when you try and use the reporting zone. And the way to do that is to create a fake email. So our example is mmouse@nomail.com. As long as you put the ending nomail.com, it will work. And then you can just carry on as normal. You can choose a year group. If you work with older students, if you can choose a post-16 year group, and that will tailor the website for the older students. And if you can put yourself into training school, that's really important, because if you choose your school or the school that you're working in, you will end up being on the data. So it's just really important, if you do want to try this out as a student before you use it with real students, you have to set yourself up as a fake student. So I hope that made sense. So other things just to highlight to you before we move on. There's an advisor zone, and this is, as I said, is where you can find lots of resources, word searches, there's tasks that require a computer, or there are tasks that a student might be able to do without using the website, a paper task, and they're all in there, and we're hoping to add to these over the summer holidays, but there's a lot to be going on with in the meantime. There are user guides for staff, so if you wanted to find out any information about how to use the website more, they're all in the advisor zone as well. As I said, there are presentations to use to introduce the website to either staff or students or parents. And the advisor zone is where you can access any free materials that you might want to use in school. So we've got posters, stickers, smart cards, parents' leaflets, and so on. And so if you wanted to access those, you do that through the advisor zone as well. So yeah, just to show you where you access these free materials, that's there. Simply put in your email address and you will be sent whatever you want. And we say if you can order enough for one year group, obviously make that year group as big as you can. There is a limit. Obviously, we can't send out lots and lots and lots of free materials, but we try and do as much as we can. So that's free materials for at least one year group within your school. And that's in the advisor zone. Other things just to point out is if you are wanting to train your staff or train other professionals that you work with on Careerpilot and spread the word, then they can attend a webinar similar to this one, or we could do one for your school. So just one that's catered for you and focused on what you want to do. Or we can come into school if you're in the local area. So that's Bath, Bristol, North Somerset, Gloucestershire, and any further afield, it would have to be a webinar. So depending on how long it takes, we're in Bath, and we kind of say if it's under an hour, sort of an hour away is our limit. But if not, then we can do a webinar purely for your school. And again, it's all free. So it's something to be taken to do if you can. So again, just to summarise what we're offering to schools across the south of England, and we're having lots and lots of schools engaged this year, again, because of the NCOP influence. But staff training, free materials. There are a few more webinars over the coming weeks before the end of term, general ones about introducing Careerpilot and so on. And obviously the advisor zone is where you can access or ask for access the reporting zone as well. We're trying to promote super users. So at the moment we've got around 50 schools, 50 schools that have got over 100 users within their schools. So they're really using it quite a lot. And in order to be a super user, you have to have had requested materials, a link on your website, and lots of students using it. So our magic number is 100, and some evidence that you've informed parents. And if you've done all of those things, then we send you some posters to display, we tweet, we put your name up on our website, and basically just try and show that you as a person or as a school are using or doing lots to try and meet those Gatsby benchmarks or the career statutory guidance. So that's just something to be aware of as well. So future developments, we're going to update the homepage a little bit to try and give students more choices. So for instance, getting them to put in their subjects, what they're interested in, and linking them to particular job sectors that are lined up with their subjects that they're studying. We're going to try and do more on what your degree might do in the future. So for instance, if a year 12 or 13 students is thinking of studying sociology or history, kind of a generic degree, trying to give them a little bit of an insight into what those graduates go on and do with that particular degree. And we're also going to try and input a job sector quiz, which again is a little interactive thing that students might try out based on their personality and their interests. And again, just trying to prompt them into some of the job sector that they might be interested in. We've met quite a lot of students who ask what are they interested in, and they turn up and they simply don't know. So it's just a matter of really trying to start that conversation or start them thinking about what it is that they're good at and what they might want to do. And obviously we're here to help. You've got our email address now, and our helpline number is on the screen there. This is being recorded. So after this has finished, you'll be sent a link to the PowerPoint or the recording, or both. And it's really just about helping you where we can. So things to remember is if you are going to use a website as a student, try and make sure you don't use your actual email address and put yourself into the training school. Otherwise, that might have an impact later on down the line if you do start using it with students. And if you are using it with students, in order for the data to be correct in the reporting zone, it's really important that they put themselves in the right school, in the right year group. It sounds obvious, but you'd be amazed by how many students don't do that and end up in a completely different school. And they must try and remember their password. So they create their own password. We don't set students up, they set themselves up. So it's really important that they try and remember it, write it down somewhere, or do something that will help them log on the next time. We do have a forgotten password facility system, but that does require them to have put in the correct email address as well. So the admin behind this is quite strict. So it's really just trying to encourage them to get that right. And obviously, if you are interested in any of the free stuff, the posters, materials, any staff training or any access to the reporting zone, then get in touch either via the advisor zone or directly by email. And one thing I didn't go quite into, but if you are interested in the reporting zone access, there is guidelines to follow, policies with the GDPR as well, that's just changed. So it's all about you need to get somebody in school who's going to take responsibility for the data, simply getting SLT or a member of SLT to sign a data sharing agreement and allowing you, if it is you or somebody else in your school, to just oversee everything and make sure that they're happy that the data is being used responsibly. So again, if you are interested in access to the reporting zone, you can do that either by email or clicking on the Advisor Zone button. So I've rattled through that. So it was half an hour. It's 3 minutes past 4. So if anybody has any specific questions, then please just type them into the chat box. Or